Welcome everyone, this is Pineleaf Needles and you are listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in LOTRO, and here at LOTRO Players. And this week we have with us Andang,
Hey everybody.
Ethelrose,
Hoi.
Draculata,
Greetings, everyone.
Rexwolf,
Did you just roll your
Wow.
R?
That was
Ooh, you got
amazing.
an R roll. Ooh.
That was
fancy, Pineleaf.
That was fancy. Is he Welsh? Hello, everybody.
and Sithrit.
Hi.
And tonight we'll go into the big news, and that is that Update 15 is to be released November 5th. Ethelrose, you broke the news on this.
Oh, I did, didn't I?
It was early this week.
Yeah, I forgot about it. Yeah, basically a massively article came out saying that from a developer call that they had with them, they announced that the next update is going to launch next Wednesday, which is the 5th of November. Which is kind of an odd date to launch on, since I think, looking at their past record, they've pretty much always done major updates on Monday, as far as I know, to give them time to, deal with any issues that may arise from it, presumably. So it's kind of weird that they're launching it like that. Not to mention how early they're doing it, but that's a different subject.
And normally they release updates in the middle of the month, pretty much regularly. Very rarely do we have a early month update.
It's been known to happen.
Name one, Pineleaf, if it's been known.
Well, I don't have the dates of every single update sitting in front of me.
You should just know that off the top of your head, finally. Come
You
on.
have the library in your head. Come on.
Pinepedia.
Pinepedia.
Like Pinepedia. All right. Yeah, so it'll be update on update 15 where we will be releasing a new epic book, some new level 100 content zones, Central Gondor, a new offensive epic battle, only the solo and duo because I think the 6-player is not coming out yet.
Yep.
If I heard correctly. And there will be a new character class / race, the Bjorning. And there are plans for updates to the music system, which has some musicians apprehensive at the moment.
Yep, but they did say that the updates to the existing system will be in this update, supposedly.
For good or bad.
Yeah.
Right, isn't that what I just said?
Okay. Probably.
Okay, then.
All right. Now, Andang seems to be of the opinion that this is a little bit too soon. So, Andang, what is the source of this opinion?
The source of this opinion.
It's
Well,
nothing.
I guess it would be myself. Basically, myself and Sithrith got together and talked about the proximity of the release of Update 15, and the main reason why we talked about this is that, first of all, there's only been 3 beta builds, which, in and of itself, regardless of like how
Technically
polished.
4 now. There is a build out right now.
Okay, so 4
As far
now.
as I know, they haven't changed anything with
But
it.
yeah, I haven't seen
Yeah,
any
they posted
release
stuff.
notes or anything. So 3 to 4 builds, that in and of itself is kind of concerning. And then the quality of the 3rd build makes it be very concerning, I think, of how close it is. The epic battle is far from where it needs to be. They haven't tested the second half of Beorning progression at all, from 50 to 100. The landscape is
Well, you
pretty much
tested
where it
up to
needs to be.
75.
Yes, but I have not seen hardly anybody above level 50, and there's no place on the forums to give feedback over level 50. And also, players they don't have an auto level feature for the Bjorningen currently, even though they have it for the other classes. So clearly they only want players to play between 1 and 50 on the Bjorning. But there's going to be a lot of players that will get to level 100 before Turbine is ready for them on the live server. And I think that could be a really big mistake.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a level 100. I'd be surprised by the end of the same day that the update goes live.
Honestly,
I would
I
not be
could.
surprised.
I would not be
I
surprised.
wouldn't go that far.
With
Maybe
200%
day 2.
XP boosts and people can spam
Mhm.
sword balls over and over again,
There's
you can
people
get
out there
pretty
that
high.
just want to be the first, and you can definitely do it within a day if you spent the whole day doing it.
Not to mention
Yeah, I
Gift of the
suppose.
Valor.
Yeah. It would not be hard to get up to level 100 day 1
Well,
if you knew
anyone
what you
who
were
gets
doing.
to 100 will probably be so, let's say, tired that they probably couldn't give coherent feedback anyway.
I think the point though is like whether people can get to 100 in a day or not. The point is they're releasing a class that they haven't fully tested, and I think
Yeah,
that's the problem.
and the real point is that, I doubt that before 2 weeks from now that they'll have much more testing on Beornings at that between 50 to 100, and 2 weeks from now there's going to be a lot of Beornings in the range between 50 and 100, especially with Gift of the Valor. So
Yeah.
I think that this is a big misstep, especially since originally they weren't even going to have the 1 to 50 leveling there. It seems
It seems
very
like they've gone the other direction now. It's like they've completely forgotten about 50 to 100 rather than before when they wanted to just do 50 to 100.
exactly, but in a lot of players' minds, they were already had that taste on their palate, if you will, and are wanting to go ahead and get the Gift of the Valor, and I would not recommend it right now.
This is kind of evident by the fact too that if you look at the Beorning skill trees, at least right now, compared to other classes, where I think the other classes with update 14 picked up a second capstone for each line, the Beorning only has one per
Yeah,
line.
that was
They
intentional because
yeah.
they were expecting feedback from live from players
Yeah,
so that they
th
would give their feedback and suggestions on what they want for that second capstone. And I think
But
leaving
isn't
room for
that what?
growth is reasonable.
Yeah, they actually did give a fairly long explanation of that. The main reason is they don't want to create another capstone that players don't like. They're wanting to take as many suggestions from players for that second capstone so that they can add it in after the fact. They gave a very lengthy answer on that, on trying to make it pretty
Yeah,
clear
they might
that
have given a
that
lengthy
was.
answer, but I can still disagree with it.
Oh yeah, I think
Not
it's
It's
not a good
reasonable.
idea
I
at
think
all.
it's reasonable.
But they've clearly thought through it, I think. So at least there's that, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that might be in context of them not having enough time for it. If they had time, they probably would have given it a second capstone right now in this testing. I
Probably.
think.
Probably.
I don't know because I think they want feedback from live because there's a lot of difference between feedback in a small group that selects themselves, as in Bull Roar, and the entire live servers. And you're
This
restricting
is
yourself in the
true.
community if you only have it to the small community.
That's true. And the capstone's not really the big deal for me personally. It's the fact that they purposely turned off the ability to level to 100 on beta to test that part.
Because people would have gone to 100 immediately and no one would have been testing the
For
Right,
the
but
first
they've
and
had-
second builds, sure, but for at least the third build,
Exactly.
they should have enabled it.
Exactly.
I think a lot of this goes back to I think they wouldn't have had as many people like us complaining if they had started this beta for Bjorn, even if it was not update 15, even if they just put Bjornings on Boror without Central Gondor or whatever, because they've been working on Bjornings longer or whatever.
Yeah.
But put Bjornings on Boror, make it a closed beta so that they can get more focused feedback. Work on Bjornings for a longer amount of time. I think they would have not had as many people questioning.
Well, I think it's probably been on Palantir for a couple of months.
Palantir's a very small team, though, compared to a closed beta.
I think time is the thing that keeps coming up, and it just seems to me that with everything that they've been deciding to do and deciding not to do, time is something they have very little of right now.
It is looking that way. And I think part of that is the recent layoffs, which we talked about last episode, And part of that is the fact that next year is Minas Tirith. And I think that they're working really hard to make that be as good as possible. And I think that this and maybe even the Osgiliath update are going to be not as polished to make sure that that one they get done right.
This is the kind of stuff that you wonder about, though, when you see 2 layoffs happen in a year, is that they keep talking about, well, our roadmap is not going to be affected, but is the quality of the content being released going to be affected? I think we hit on that a couple weeks
Exactly.
ago.
Mm-hmm.
That question enters your mind when you see stuff like this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not a good time when I think for the next, in 2015, they're going to need, as big of a team as they can possibly get. It's going to be their biggest project that they've ever done. Obviously they're releasing it in phases, but still, just Minas Tirith alone is the biggest project that LOTRO's ever attempted. And just the tech needed to make a city that big function in an online game is going to be very hard. Let alone all the art assets and all the stuff that have to go along with creating a city that big. And it's just, I can't even imagine the amount of work that it's going to have to take to get that done, especially in an MMO this old.
That's true, but I think there's a concern that with so much of their focus presumably on Minas Tirith and obviously the whole battle surrounding it, they're kind of maybe not putting enough, or at least not having enough extra resources to put into this other stuff they're doing. Like, it seems like
Exactly.
every feature or enhancement to a feature has been done piece by piece on live, and I just don't think that is a good way to develop things in the MMO. This Essence system is an example of that. They've only done like a tiny piecemeal part of it, and people are not happy about it.
Even, I'd say everything since Mounted Combat has been done fairly piecemeal. Epic battles they're very different now as to where they were when they launched. I think that just about every system they've launched not complete since then. And I think that's
Allies
a big
is-
mistake.
Yeah.
Well, then,
It seems like their mentality anymore is to, we'll just release it and then we'll patch it later.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether
Which-
this is like,
Which
this is what we want to do, or whether that's the absolute most they're actually able to do with their limited, or seemingly limited resources and time that they
It's
have.
looking to me more and more like that's what they have to do because they don't have the people to do anything else.
I just
Yeah.
remembered something I wanted to mention. I was watching through the Shadow of Mordor credits because I just finished that, and there were over like 30 or 40 names that were from the Turbine studio. So I'm wondering if the layoffs were those people as well, since that game ended.
that would be, yeah, if there
Um,
were a large number of people in Turbine Studios working on Shadow of Mordor, those would have been positions that might have been terminated. I didn't know about those.
Yeah, I was reading through the credits and it said unless there's another Turbine Studios,
That's part of Warner?
it
But I mean,
was all there. So I don't know that.
while that could be possible, I think the fact that like the other article you have with the systems or certain stuff they've delayed from this update, on top of the stuff they'd already announced was delayed, the LI update mainly, it's kind of stuff just seems to be hinting that they at least been hit somehow for LOTRO.
Yeah,
some
I
way.
think that there definitely has been a hit. I definitely think that it has been impacted. I don't know, but at the same time, Turbine's delayed all sorts of things over the time period, so I don't know how much of this is from the layoffs and how much of this is just from Turbine being overzealous on trying to get, too much done.
Well, concerning the delays, looks like all right, let's go to the Bjorning Price and Systems delay article. All right, the first thing being is that Bjorning is going to cost 1,000 turbine points. And that is actually a bit lower than I was expecting, so...
Yeah, I was expecting around anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500, so it's on the
Right.
low side of what I expected. So I'm glad.
It's also surprising that it's actually 1,000. Like they've said, it's specifically 1,000, not 995,
Right.
but 1,000,
They have some things
which
in the
is
store
unusual.
that are flat 1,000 and not 995, like the I think the upgrade for your inventory, not like the bags or anything, but the actual like upgrade for your inventory is 1,000 flat.
Mm.
That puts like badges and things into your wallet or whatever.
All right.
The premium wallet or whatever it's called.
Right. But there are three things that, let's see, there is, all right, there'll be Bjorning only rating gears spaced throughout the levels. All right, that's a item on there. And then you list two
I
things that are system delays.
Yeah, I real quick though, I do hope that the Beorning only rating gear does have different cosmetics. I don't
'Cause otherwise I'll be
know
grumpy.
if
I
that's gonna
very
happen.
much doubt it. Very much doubt it.
Mm.
Yeah, based on experience from recently, because I don't know, I sometimes think that the cosmetic team must have been really hit hard at some point because I'm sure Citrix, it, what do you think about the cosmetic? Because since Isengard, has there been any really good cosmetics coming out consistently?
Not consistently, no. The thing with Isengard, I don't know why they did this, or what made them do this, or why they haven't done it since, and why they never did it before. But with Isengard, they actually outsourced their cosmetics.
Ah,
All those
that's what happened.
Dunland
Hmm.
Quest cosmetic rewards that everybody uses, and that I know, like I have at least one Dunland Quest reward cosmetic in pretty much every outfit I ever make because they're so good. They're like really realistic looking. They're very nice. They dye well, etc., etc. They outsourced their that whole cosmetic thing to a different design company, and that design company made those cosmetic looks for them. I don't think they've done that since, and I don't think they ever did that before either. So I don't know why they did
Actually,
it. It was
they
awesome.
did do that before with the I was watching through or maybe it was reading an article or something, but with the original Angmar game, they actually did outsource a lot of their cosmetics there as well.
Okay.
So
The outsourced clown suits.
So it's not unheard of that they did it, but it was definitely a huge bump in quality. And my only guess is that there was somebody looking at a spreadsheet and said, "Why did we spend money on cosmetics? That can go."
hmm
Yeah, that sounds like an executive decision if I've ever heard one.
That's the only thing I can think of as to why they didn't
And
do that again.
recently, cosmetics have gotten like they have been adding fewer and fewer cosmetics. Um, Famously, of course, the festivals the past year and a half or so now have only, yeah, have only
Yeah.
given the option of a robe or a tablecloth horse, and that is it. No more tunics, no more dresses. That's it. So that's
Yeah.
awesome, and by awesome I mean not awesome. And
And
also with the most recent update, 14, they made these new class armor sets, but they didn't actually make new cosmetics for them. They used some of the armor cosmetic sets are just skins of random armor throughout the world thrown together. Some of them they actually used outfits from Starry Mantle or Cosmetic Lotro to make outfits that looked at least okay and good, but they didn't make new cosmetics. They just used old
yeah,
skins.
aside from the three like weight tier outfits, I think those are the only new ones they put in.
Yep, that's the only new cosmetics.
It mentioned in the festival thing. I think remember, like I think it was a couple of months back, one of that new producer came in and
hmm
said, I think he responded to someone asking about the whole tablecloth robe issue, and he said
Yeah,
they would
you
sort it
talked to
out
him about it.
generally. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's kind of awkward now.
kind of awkward now.
Yeah,
Since he, yeah. And I was just surprised that they actually added new cosmetics for Bjornings to start off with. To begin with, I expected them to just use the default medium armor that all the other classes have to start with as well. But
And I think
I
they
mean,
look really
not
cool.
gonna complain.
yeah,
Yeah, they look
look
really
fine.
great, which is kind of why I was hoping that they would actually add in new cosmetics for other Bjorning raid sets. because because they obviously do still have some very talented artists on their team. Obviously, between the world builders and the cosmetics that they do release, they're pretty good. But the problem is they don't put out new cosmetics hardly ever anymore. So
I think aside
Yeah.
from like the whole Gondor and Bjorning stuff, I think the last really creative design they came up with was that Thorin's Hall mount,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like what a couple of weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
really the
they've been
last
good
thing.
with the horses. It seems every couple of months they come out with a new horse like that. There's the Thorns Hall one, there's a Rivendell one, and before that they had a Bree one.
And the
they've all
Bounders
been
Bounty
good.
one before that was
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and that was good.
All right. So we're a little bit off topic here. So let's get back
Sorry.
to the system delays. And
You,
there are
you
two.
wanted me to talk about cosmetics. What
Yeah,
were you
sorry. Yes,
expecting?
that was my fault. All right. But there are two. There are two items in here that are delayed, and one is the 6-player size for the epic battle. So only the solo and duos would be available at update 15. The 6 will be added later. And the second is that the new music instruments will not be available. Now, the new music instruments, I remember back when they first announced them, that was a maybe at best. I got the
Well,
impression.
when they first announced them, yes, but then they made it sound a little bit more definite. Um, I haven't been able to find that post since then, but I remember reading it, and so does some of the community people as well. Um, and they're just not going to go into this update, but it does sound like they will be added later sometime. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see if they do, but it does sound like that it'll be added later, so that means we'll be getting new instruments. So, I mean, that is still good. It's just not going to happen now.
From what I remember, the new instruments will use new sounds for playing music, but they will not have their own models or animations.
Well, that was that was
Well, they
for
wouldn't have their
the
own
update
animations, but I
15.
thought
If
they
they
would
were at
have their
15,
own.
they were asking whether or not because there was specifically the question on the fiddle at the time is if they got a fiddle, would they be worried? Because I know they said if there was any chance of getting it in 15, there was no way it would have its own models and stuff like that. The question is whether that would be different if it came out later.
I thought it
We'll
was going
find
to
They
get its
out.
own
haven't
model,
confirmed
just
either
not
way,
its
though.
own animation.
Yeah, okay. I can't remember exactly.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments on this?
Well,
It's one of the, like, back in the last round of layoffs, Brax said that it's kind of the perfect storm where everything kind of looked bad because it all happened at once. There was a lot more stuff that happened than just the layoffs, and so I'm wondering if this is kind of the same thing or if this is purely due to the layoffs. And it's kind of concerning to me. I think that from what I've seen on Twitter and other places, a lot of people have lost, I don't want to say confidence, but they realize that LOTRO might have not have been where they thought it was. Obviously, LOTRO could still be in a really great place financially. But with these kind of delays and things like that, it seems like that LOTRO is finally going to be getting back into, having more stuff being shown and, them working on other things other than just the core content. But aside from the Beorning class, we haven't really gotten that much stuff added to the game aside from just the core content stuff we would have got with the expansion normally that I can think of.
just like the thing you mentioned about people kind of thinking stuff about the game, that maybe it's not where they thought it was. Just the fact that people may be thinking that now is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Because people who think that are a lot less likely to spend money on the game and commit themselves to it.
I know a lot of people have been thinking about. I don't know necessarily anyone who has getting rid of their subscriptions because they don't know how much longer LOTRO is going to be around. I think we're good till 2017. I'd be surprised if we weren't, but it's still concerning. And it does seem like that Lotro kind of has to just focus on their main mission, and that's to tell a really good story. And everything else is kind of on the side.
Mm-hmm.
All right, then we'll go on into
Really a
our.
quick pine leaf, actually. We got this information from the Update 15 preview stream,
I was wondering when we were going to get to this.
and first of all, who actually watched the stream?
I did not.
I think I
watched
saw
part of
the
it.
very early parts, but Twitch doesn't like me recently, so
Yeah, Twitch is twitchy.
It is. I watched the recorded version just because usually that seems to work. They had major issues showing this to the public. I don't think that this is what happened during the press release. If it did, then that's concerning as well. But it's just they first of all weren't prepared from the beginning. The character they were on didn't have the ability to run certain things, and the developer that was running that character couldn't figure out how to operate the store for 10 minutes and get the stuff they needed to actually be able to show the epic battle. And because they lost that amount of time, they didn't show any of the landscape. They barely showed the epic battle. They didn't show hardly anything about the Beorning because they were on a level 50 and a level 100 area. It was a complete disaster, and it made me embarrassed to have Lotro players. It made me embarrassed to be a Lotro fan, and it was very shocking to me. And this happening right after the layoffs is not a good image at all to be sending to the people who are tuning in to find out what's new to their game. And we don't get negative very often on the show, but this is one of the times where I think it really warrants it. It was the worst stream I've seen by any game company, and that says a lot because some companies don't do a good job. But this beat it out by far. They would have done a lot better to not have a stream at all.
Which is sad because their other previous preview streams have been actually pretty good from what I remember.
Yeah, normally the preview streams have been pretty good. The most recent one they had was with MMO Reporter. I kind of wish that they'd have, a site like that be going through on the stream with them, because having a player do it seems to work a lot better. That way the
Or at least
dev
people who are used to streaming.
right, that
more.
way the devs can focus on what they're doing, and the press person can focus on trying to make it look fairly good, and it seems to work
Player
really
can
well.
be just enthusiastic about what they're seeing. They're more likely to be, I would think.
Yeah, and just having a fan there, I think helps it be good as well. People are asking what stream was this? This was the Update 15 preview stream where we got the information about the delays and the Beorning class price and stuff like that. And there is a link in the article that will take you to the stream. I wouldn't recommend watching this stream. If you want to keep a positive opinion of the game, and moreover, if you want to keep a positive opinion of the people behind the game. Drac,
Yeah,
what did you think about the stream? You haven't talked about it yet.
You pretty much nailed it on the head. To me, it was a total embarrassment. I'm sorry. Like you said, yeah, I do harp on epic battles, but that's kind of like an inside joke at this point, and the whole skeleton steed thing. But I try not to get too negative on Turbine, but come on, people. When you have it takes two people to unlock something for somebody.
For 10
And
minutes just from the store to
you're
find the NPC.
you're streaming this live to where non-players are seeing this. What what does that make the game look like to people that you want to play the game? I mean, to me, if I knew nothing about Lotro, and that would have been my first look at Lotro, I would think these people don't know what they're doing. Why would I play their game? And
And we
that's
know
sad.
people who don't. We know people who don't play Lotro frequently come into these streams. If you've ever watched any of the Shield or Tahiti runs or anything, you'll know people who don't play Lotro will see the stream, like come into the streams and start asking, like, "Oh, Lotro, what's this about? Like, oh, what's this game?"
Yeah, exactly.
So like, people watch these, obviously.
It's it. The whole thing was just sad to me. That
It's bad PR.
yeah. Oh, it
Simple as
is.
that.
It is.
Yeah.
And
Which
remember, we
is-
actually love the game. Like, we're being really
Mhm.
negative, but
Right.
we all love this
Exactly.
game. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't. We want this game to be successful. We want them to put their best foot forward because we love this game, and so it makes us sad to see them not doing the best that they could be.
Yeah, I think
They're
Because
not
we know
making
they
their
could do better.
product look good.
I think at the very least, having someone else, like bring in a laptop or something and have someone else looking at the comments and watching those while somebody else is showing the actual game would help a ton. Having one person manage both of those is pretty hard to do, especially if you're having to also answer questions and stuff like that at the same time. And also, just, I mean, I'm sure they probably did practice, but practice it on the character you're going to be showing it on, and make sure that it can go really smoothly. It really made me not happy to be a Lotro fan, and definitely made me very unconfident in the Lotro Turbine development team.
I hate to be saying this, but I think it's kind of evident that Sapiens, as much as we can criticize him for certain things or whatever, he knew generally how to stream. He knew what he was doing in the game, and he knew how to communicate with the chat. It seems like after he left, that the other people who are picking up after him have no experience with streaming, and apparently some limited experience with the game itself. And that is not good when you're trying to show other people who may be interested in playing the game what your game is like.
Well, I mean, and it wasn't even just the community manager that looked bad in this. Like, even Rowan didn't present himself very, very good in this.
Yeah.
And so it just seemed like every single person that was, because there were like 5 developers, I think, maybe 6. None of them presented any type of professionalism, really, except for maybe one of them that I don't even know the name of. But it just felt very, very unpolished, and something that just, if I wasn't already doing Lotro players, that might have been enough to make me stop playing the game, just because of what state the stream was in, to be honest.
That's what I mean. It just
Yeah.
it seems like Sapiens is the only one at Turbine who knew what they were doing when it comes to this sort of stuff. No one
Mhm.
else seemed to be prepared to pick up after him.
Lotro
they
Turbine.
They kind of stuck meandering about with stuff that they don't really know what to.
It
do
almost
with.
seems like one of them, like Rowan or somebody, was like, "Oh, update 15's coming out next week. Oh yeah, streaming is a thing. We should do that." And then
Well,
just kind
what's
of call
weird
people
is
in.
they already had a stream for the press.
Right.
That's what's really weird about it, is they already successfully did that. Maybe it was a different team doing that, but
I can almost guarantee it was a different team.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It just, at the very least, I think that they, next time, if they're going to do a stream, need to do it with the people who did it to the press, because, or make sure to practice a lot beforehand and make sure that you're ready for stuff. Also, not very many questions got answered because they were too busy trying to fix all the problems that were on their end anyway. And so it seemed like a waste of time. They didn't even mention the when update 15 was coming out or anything like that. It just seemed like the entire thing, they didn't give hardly any information. Even information that we already knew, they weren't giving hardly anything. And then with all the issues they had on top of that, that made it just be terrible, to be honest.
It's a pretty clear example of bad publicity being worse than no publicity at all.
Hmm.
It's definitely a problem area here that they need to work on if they want their game to get any kind of a word of mouth or just people talking about it in general.
All right, let's go on.
Yep, something better. Let's move on to something better.
All right. Now, the highlight of Update 15 is, now some people might be thinking it's the epic battle, but I think there are a number of us who are considering the Bjorning to be the highlight of it.
Yep.
And in light of that, we did have a few of us play through on Bjorning. I took a Bjorning from level 1 through 37 during the Extra Life weekend. And reached level 37, and I posted a video which showed the Bjorning going through a skirmish so that you could see how the Bjorning works at level 37. And overall, at least the parts of the Bjorning I saw looks like it's working out pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems to be really well polished, especially 1 through 50. I don't think they have too much to worry about on the Bjorning from what I've seen, but I haven't played very much at all beyond level 50, so I don't know. Like we said earlier, we don't know if there might be issues that might arise, but I think that the Bjorning's actually in a really good place, and I'm pretty surprised at how good of a place it's in, actually.
All right, but you did test out level 73 combat.
I did, and the capstones are really nice. I think that people will enjoy them, particularly one that allows you to transfer incoming healing to a target. So if somebody's healing you, they can also be giving even more heals to somebody else through you, which is pretty nice. So if you're like an off-tank Bjorning or something like that, it could work really well.
If you miss your captain from before Helm's Deep, you will like Bjornings. It's basically.
Yeah, I mean,
There it
honestly,
is.
the Bjorning class at its current state from beta build 3 of the beta really feels like how the captain should have been done for this. Plus, you get a few lore master things added into it on top, so it actually feels better than some of the current classes on live, to be honest. In my opinion, at least. Obviously, everyone has their own tastes, but
Yeah.
it seems like a really good spot.
I know I played it on Redline, so therefore I did feel a little squishy, but then in Redline, maybe you're supposed to be a little bit squishy compared to a tanking line, so I don't know what the tanking line
Yeah,
is
I think
like.
Redline currently is actually a little too squishy from what I've seen. I went ahead and upgraded all the virtues, got some pretty good armor for level 70-ish, and did all the things you need to do to get a really well, even more. I gave it more. How do I want to phrase that? I made the character better than what you'll probably be at that level, because of the virtues and things like that. And the red line still felt a little too squishy. It'd be pretty easy to die there, but the other lines feel fantastic. I think they just need to make red line a little bit stronger.
All right, very well then. Anyone else have any comments on the Bjorning before we head into the store sales?
Get ready for bear pun names.
Well, yes, we are going to be seeing quite a number of those, I am sure, because everyone next week is going to have a very interesting time.
Oh,
Really?
goodness.
Finally?
Yep.
Really?
All right, what are the store sales this week?
Well, we have a totally worthless free sample of the week Randomrella pack ×1. Use the coupon code
It's not
RE.
totally worthless.
It's totally worthless.
Yeah, it's better than some of the other ones we've had.
Use coupon code RELL9, RELL9. Once again, one per account. So choose wisely. 20% off milestone skills, hurried and returning traveler, writing traits, and the simple rally horn. Also 50% off the gift of the valor now through November 4th. Just in time for the Bjorning.
Yeah, just in time to expire before the Bjorn. And also, I noticed that the milestone skills are, of course, will be going off so right after the Bjorning gets released. So I'm just wondering, will I be able to get a milestone skill for my Bjorning or not? That because I'm thinking on that. All right. So let's go into the player site news, and we'll begin with the LOTRO Players RPG, which is now available. And Brax, what is this all about?
Hey guys, we're in a video game. Isn't that cool?
Ooh.
Yeah.
So one of the things the thing that DJ Pimp Daddy did for his extra live stream was he created a video game with the LOTRO Players News crew as the characters within the RPG. And he made it available for download for free, and there's a link in the post as to where to get that. Some of the features of this game, which is completely awesome, by the way. I think Andang is doing a playthrough on his YouTube channel. I did one during the my extra live stream. Some of the features are you can see the real Pine Leaf origin story.
Oh, God.
Which is amazing, by the way.
You can witness an epic rap battle, battle the random number generator, visit Draculetta's castle and help him search for the red skeleton steed, tour the Braxwood, and adventure with Andang, Mystery, Draculetta, Ethelros, Sithrith, and Braxwolf through a world of wonder and excitement, filled with danger and surprise, members of the LOTRO and LOTRO Players community.
I don't remember an Ethelros being in that game.
You know what? DJ's in the chat room, and he says version 2 of the RPG is already in beta. So I think there may be an Ethelros and a Lilicate in the second version.
And from what I understand, that's actually Andang's fault.
It's not my fault. The chat room says that because I didn't catch it, even though I was watching the stream, that it was my fault. But Twitch is pretty blurry, so you can't blame me for that.
Oh, okay.
If you are a fan of this podcast at all and have been following along for any period of time, there are a ton of inside jokes in this game. It is really, really hilarious. It's a short playthrough, probably about 15 to 30 minutes, 30 if you're going really slow. But I had a blast playing it. I played through it a couple times, and I can't wait for the second version.
Yeah, I did a playthrough with it, and it is a lot of fun to do a playthrough of your own game. that's about your show. It's a lot of fun, and I hope that I'm sure that those that'll try it out will probably enjoy it. And it's free, so what can you lose?
All right, and since we were talking about the extra life effort, how did that go, Brax?
It went really, really well. I know personally I had a really, really great time. I was not sure how 24 hours was going to go, and yes, it was exhausting, but I think it was totally worth it. Our goal that we set kind of as we placed a dartboard on the wall and threw a dart at it was $3,000. We raised $1,480 between the LOTRO Players team, so that's about 50%, almost 50%. Yeah, that's 49% of the goal. But I think I had a great time. I know Drac was doing his thing. He actually posted a tweet of him watching my stream. I know I was able to pull in some folks from the team. DJ made an appearance on my stream. Andang was on there. I never did get Drac. That's for next year. We didn't get Drac on. And then I tried to visit some of the other streams that were going on as well. American Golden Star had one. MMO Reporter was doing theirs. It's kind of a fun, even if you're not doing a stream or actually participating in the fundraising, I think the people that come in and watch the stream and are in the chat and stuff, it just feels like this is the day for video gamers to all get together. And it's like a big party and you're going from one room to the other to the other. And it's just it was a really cool experience. I'm really glad I
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and thank you everyone who donated to it. That's awesome, and thank you DJ for building a game about our podcast over the course of 24 hours. That is dedication. Thank you so much.
Very well. And now we had LOTRO Players Adventures, episode 35, Warg Podiatrist, MD.
Oh gosh, this was ages ago.
Don't ask, finally. Don't ask.
Too long ago, can't remember. Move on.
Yes, I know. But obviously, a warg had a hurt foot somewhere in there.
We had a lot of
Alright,
fun
we
on that
had-
episode. Not as much fun as we had this week, but we had a lot of fun on that
Oh
episode.
god. Yeah.
All right, very well. And then we also had Forgotten LOTRO Lore, The Summer of War.
That was dramatic.
That was.
Well, was anyone here on the Codemaster side around that time so they would actually remember these events?
No, but I've heard, not just from here, that some of these have happened. So, basically, it featured PvP tournaments and all sorts of stuff being dropped down in the world, controlled by GMs, and just sounds like a ton of fun where they tried to do a lot of stuff with players that wouldn't be happening in the game normally, and it just sounds like a ton of fun. I really wish
Sounds
that
a lot
they'd
like the
keep doing it.
Amarthiel event that we
Yep.
had on the US servers.
It sounds almost like the beta ending event, but not on beta.
I'm not too sure I want to be around if they did that.
Well, it's not quite that far, but they did drop down 680,000 morale bosses, which at the time would have been a ton, because this was back in 2012. So, I mean, it does seem like that they could have made players upset, but I think that most players would probably have really enjoyed this.
All right. And now we'll go into the poll from last week, or from a poll, which is, do you raid in LOTRO? And Dane?
It was actually 2 weeks ago, but yes.
Okay then, let's move on.
Yes, you raid, or yes, you did a poll?
Yes, I used to raid. The poll was, do you raid in LOTRO? And this was inspired by Bloodborne's raiding article, which was very popular and seemed to gain a lot of community talk on the subject. And so I figured it'd be fun to find out if people raid in LOTRO. And the top result with 54 votes, just 2 more than the next one, was yes, but not often, followed by no. Followed by no, but I've wanted to. Followed by yes, still at least once a week, with 40 votes. That's pretty surprising. Yes, I used to, with 30 votes, and then other had 5 votes. So it seems pretty even between yes and no, as far as, because all these answers are pretty close together. So I was kind of surprised that so many people still seem to be rating, or used to.
All right, and I suppose I'm wondering how many people have managed to get characters to complete Skirmisher Middle Earth, because next article is on my quest on seeing if I could get Skirmisher Middle Earth on all of the classes, and I have successfully completed it on one character in each of 8 classes plus 5 wardens. So that's a total of 13 characters.
Skirmish much?
Pine Leaf, how does it feel to be the only player to do something?
I don't know if I'm the only player to have gotten all classes to skirmish from
You
the
gotta
Lord
be
or
at
not.
least in the 1%. At least.
You might have to be the only person who's ever gotten 5 wardens to skirmish.
That's
Well,
probably
there's like-
true.
yeah, I'm sure there aren't too many people who have 5 wards with that title. I have to agree with that.
Zinger says that we are unworthy.
If you listen to Light the Beacons last week, Bragg was just talking about how he was struggling to get one character to have that title, and
Yeah.
so it was funny to come back and read this the very next week.
It's pretty funny.
Oh yeah, I didn't hear about that. But yeah, it was quite a struggle in getting the, especially when you have an encounter that is stubborn with a random number generator, just refusing to bring out that encounter, and finally to get it.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And at least now I don't have to select skirmishes based on encounters anymore.
But you're still
And
gonna select
that's how
skirmishes, is what you're
Bjorn goes
saying.
through it.
This isn't the
What?
end. You're gonna keep getting more and more characters through it, probably.
Well, I do have the Bjorning to get through.
Of course.
Of course. I mean, I can't leave them out, right?
It's true. You need a 14th.
We need a 14. And besides, especially since, according to The Hobbit, the number 13 is unlucky.
Mm-hmm.
And then once Pineleaf gets that Beorning up, he's gonna be like, well, I can't let that one be lonely. Gotta do another one.
All right.
Yawning family.
All right. Let's go into our video highlights, which is the Inception trailer. What is that all about?
Yes, well, it is just as it sounds. Basically, someone took the music from Inception and combined it with various cinematics and gameplay from LOTRO and made a pretty epic trailer about it because, as most people would claim, the Inception music does make everything more epic, and I think that here is no exception.
Yeah.
All right, then. And we also have alterations, which are rejected LOTRO movie posters, which are in effect LOTROfications of other movies that existed.
It's what?
You
This
just
is the
made
most
an
Zinger
amazing
thing I've
word,
ever
Pine
seen.
Leaf. Can you repeat
That's a
that
great word.
and define it, please?
Define it?
Yeah, just repeat whatever you said and define it. please.
LOTROfication.
Okay, what does that mean?
Take something and bring LOTRO into it.
You
All
know we have a
right,
show title now, right?
we do.
We do.
Such as The Grapes of Bath. Or
Yeah, Zinger did a great job doing what Zinger does, messing with Photoshop and making really funny things. If you want a laugh, this is definitely the article to go to this week, I think. Zinger did a great job making all sorts of movie poster parodies, and I definitely tap my hat off to him. This is amazing.
all right. And then next we have the Rohirrim Rambler, The Wold. And with all that's going on, he's going through the various aspects of the Wold, rambling through there and going through Longhorns and Harwicks and each of the places in turn where you go through when you go through the Wold. So if you're interested in learning what this is like, if you're getting ready to go into Rohan, then look up this, which is by Edicles of Evernight.
Mhm.
And
It's a good write up. Like usual.
right, like usual, yes. Then we'll go into the LOTRO video highlights. feel the sun.
You're very tonight, finally.
Yeah, you are very dramatic tonight. Yes, so this is another trailer that a fan made that shows some really beautiful vistas and tells basically a story of a craftsman journey to become a hero. And I got that from the description of the video. And it also involves a bit of a love story and some other things. And so I recommend checking it out if you're interested in a really good fan fiction story put to a song that fits it.
Right? And ooh, Family Line Part 16, The Hunters 3. And this time we talk about are they trying to imitate the three hunters in the books?
Mm, I don't think so. No.
I
I think
so.
it just happened to be a good naming convention that is also in use in Rohan.
I think they took some characters that they made up and applied some LOTROfication on it and made it
There you go.
into something awesome. That's what I think, finally.
Okay, that sounds like it's going to be the word of the day now. So then let's talk about Bloodborne's articles then on what makes an MMO good or great. And he goes through graphics. The first thing is if you have great graphics, you'll pull them in and get people immersed in the world. And I think most of us think that the graphics in LOTRO tend to be pretty good if you have the right settings for it.
Yeah, they're definitely still good now. In about a year or two's time, once people really unlock the next gen stuff, maybe not so much. But right now, they definitely are really good graphics, especially to some of the other big MMOs that are competing with it, like World of Warcraft. While it is stylized art, so it's probably going to end up lasting longer. Depending on your preference, I think that LOTRO looks better just because it actually has more graphics going on. It has better lighting and stuff like that. But obviously, when you try to make something more realistic, it won't stay realistic for too long because graphics keep moving forward.
Well, yes, there is always that challenge. Second one is consistency. You want things to feel like they're part of a single world. You would like the quest to flow together well and how things work, to be consistent with each other. How consistent do you think LOTRO is?
Yeah.
Well, I think Dol Amroth is very consistent with Evendim.
Yeah, there's some aspects of the game that are very consistent. Like they do a really good job of keeping the Breland human architecture consistent. Like Gondorian era architecture is very consistent, like Anding said.
Almost too
Evendim
consistent.
and almost too consistent. Anuminas looks very much like the cities we are now seeing in Gondor, so it makes sense because the same people built those cities more or less. And Elven architecture is pretty consistent. There is some consistency, but then he does bring up a good point about, I think it's in the consistency section, or maybe it's in content, or maybe, I don't know where he brings it up. Oh, he brings it up in the other part. Never mind. Continue.
All right. Third is content, and
Actually, I would like to mention in the consistency part, he talks about clipping issues with equipment and stuff in general. While that is annoying, I can't think of a game, at least an MMO, that doesn't have it. At least
Yeah,
some
that's
capacity.
true. I would not consider that a consistency issue. That is a general game issue. Like you see clipping in Skyrim. That's not an MMO consistency issue. That is a game related mechanics problem that
It
plagues
is-
many, many games.
It is a lot more common in MMOs though, just because you're in an online world, and it's a
Right,
lot
and-
more technical things that have to go on to make that happen.
And I think any game where you create a character and can adjust different things, it's gonna be
The more
Mhm.
more
variables,
problem.
the more problematic it is.
Yep.
Right.
Right. And the next is content. And he has a rather wide range of what he considers to be content. And because I know some people are very narrow in how they define content. For some people will say if there's not a major raid, you don't have any content. But he has a much broader definition of what content is here.
Yeah, he brings up a good point here. He classes personally. I would make systems a subset of or a different category from content. I personally see content as like questing the world, etc. But systems is
Yeah.
kind of a vehicle through which you experience content, and so he mentions systems in this content, and he brings up a good point that it seems every year Turbine releases some new system but never really finishes it off all the way or doesn't continue to develop them as much as they could. And I definitely do think that that is a problem that uh, Lotro Turbine has been dealing with for years and years, and they still have this problem where they keep releasing new systems, like, oh, look at this new system, but then it just kind of falls to the wayside, never to
Yes,
be
because
fully realized.
it would be real. I still think that I know some people would have screamed if we were not in the middle of the Battle of Helm's Deep. I still say that we should have been doing things on the side and helping it more on the skirmish level than right in the center of it because we're heroes. We're supposed to turn the tide.
In retrospect, especially, Pineleaf, I think
Yes,
that
yes,
people are, are on
retrospect.
the side of
Well,
the.
yeah, there is always that too. Yes.
He does make one point in this content section that I would actually like to mention. He talks about that if you don't have, as he calls it, great group content, which at this point you could argue Lotro doesn't, at least not new stuff. He says that it could theoretically could just be an RPG. There's no point in it being massively multiplayer. I would actually disagree with that point because I would say that being massive multiplayer is about more than just going into a dungeon with a group of people and killing something. It's about the economy. It's about role playing with each other. It's about just generally running around in the same world as other people and talking.
Right. Second Life is an
socializing.
MMO. Second
Yeah.
Life's an MMO. You don't do raids in Second Life. That would not make
And I would like to
sense.
point out that a lot of people don't understand why didn't understand why ESO was going to be an online MMO for that very reason, because basically the main content that they were interested in was because at the time they hadn't announced raids and stuff like that, so people didn't understand, aside from the PvP mechanic, why it needed to be an MMO and not just an RPG. But obviously, interacting with friends and like weather stock and all that stuff that's in Lotro makes it be a really cool thing to be online. And
Yeah.
so I definitely think that it should definitely be an MMO still, even if the developers don't put anything in there for there to be a reason. The players will find it as long as there's a chat window or something like that.
Barnabas in the chat calls it an ecosystem. I think that is a pretty good description of what an MMO would be. It's just a thing with people in it, and they do stuff.
Yep.
Succinct.
You can have a bunch of systems that either like allow people to use it for other activities, or it's just a platform, like a stage or anything like that. It's just those things aren't necessarily like needed for it to be there, but they just help it become that much more in depth.
All right. And the next item is talk about is online integration, which Lotro used to be very good at, but things have fallen off a little bit over the years because we no longer have the ability to look at our characters while we're not online by going through the lotro.com. And I think there are a lot of people who really miss the ability to look at their characters when they're not logged in.
Yeah, I especially miss the application that was for smartphones that allowed you to do that. That was fantastic. I I think that
Mm.
I don't think that that lost any players, but I think that that kind of was another thing on players' lists possibly for leaving.
I miss being able to look up character names to see if a name I wanted on a server was already taken. That was
Yeah.
very handy.
I know PvPers had a big, well, not big, but for their size, I guess, big upset over the leaderboards going, which is kind of important to them, I guess, for bragging rights. And I think there was also a point that they made about that, where it was one of the only ways you could tell if someone was, say, bot grinding their way to max rank and things like that. That was one of the few ways of actually finding out if someone was doing it. Obviously, it's not completely accurate because you can't actually see what they're doing just from looking at the numbers. But yeah, that was one of the complaints they had.
And on this topic of offline integration, I don't think necessarily to be great an MMO has to have some kind of app or anything. I think what counts is the out of game interactions. If the company makes an effort to communicate with players outside of the game, makes an effort to, you know, I don't know, just engage with players outside of the game in some way, some meaningful way, I think that definitely makes an MMO better.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
a live stream.
Yeah.
All right. And for our pick of the week, Brack seems to have something that's very appropriate for this week, even though it was written back in March 2013. And what is this all about?
I think you meant to say it's very timely.
Oh, he missed out on a segue.
Yeah, this is an older one, but it was retweeted out again this past week, and I thought it was really a good time to talk about it. It's called "So What's the Time in LOTRO" by Lena over at the Biscuity Burrow, and basically she explains this is especially important, for those of us in the U.S. who are changing our clocks tonight, or if you're listening to the podcast, have changed them recently, or those in Europe, I think, who did the same thing about a week ago or so. When you're trying to get together for whatever purpose in the game and you're all in different time zones, whether that be for a raid or for an event, a concert, or something else, it's always tough to throw that together. So the best thing to do is what Lena says, is to go by server time always. And server time is what the servers in LOTRO are on, which is basically the same time as Boston. Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time. But if you want to be safe, just call it server time and look what time it is in Boston, and I'll get, use that as your kind of baseline, because that's not going to change. So yeah, that's basically her advice for that type of thing. And I thought that was fairly important as someone who tries to schedule podcasting guests and stuff and sometimes has time zone issues. I can understand that type of problem.
Yeah.
I feel I should point out that the Titan Bar plugin has an option that lets you display both the server time and your own real life time for where you are, which is actually
Very
quite
handy.
convenient.
Okay, I guess I didn't think about that because they're the same for me.
Well, yeah. that
Well,
tends to be a thing.
la-ti-da.
And if Pineleaf was in another time zone, he would know it before the computer could calculate it. He's that fast, and
Exactly.
it just wouldn't be an issue.
Right. So just remember, yes, it is that make sure you have the times right. I think we had a couple of situations recently in rehearsals where people were late because they got the time messed up because they had recently had a time zone change. So let's go into news beyond LOTRO, and we'll begin with the poll, another one of our recent polls, and that is, do you like the Hobbit films so far?
Yes. So apparently, great is not the same as good.
This is true.
So this week we did ask people, do you like the Hobbit films so far? And the top answer was that they are both great, with
And that's even a
106
majority.
votes, 56% of the vote. thinks that both the Hobbit films are great. This just took off recently, in the last few days, that answer, because they were pretty close before that. The next response with 19% of the vote was meh, the Drac response. The next highest was, the first was great, but the second was bad, with 11%. And then they are both bad, with 9%. The first was bad, but the second was great, with 4%, and I haven't seen them, with 1%. So, I was pretty interested to find out that 56% of the people who participated in this poll thought that both films were great.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
we
I'm not
are
surprised
Tolkien
'cause
fans, so
Yeah,
it's not too
I
surprising, I
admit,
guess.
though.
yeah. It. I don't know. There are a couple of points when they were saying, "Okay, he did what?"
Yeah, I had those too, but when I watched it, I didn't, well, I wasn't really that bothered. I just sort of wonder about it for like 2 seconds and then move on. I don't know. Just me personally, I think the first one is better, or at least stronger, but I didn't really dislike the second one. I think it was fine as a film.
Yeah, like my feelings are like kind of positively neutral for the first one and kind of like negatively neutral for the second one, so it kind of evens out to a general meh.
See, I thought that there were some bad parts in the second movie, but I wouldn't go as far as to say it was a bad movie.
Yeah.
From a filmmaker point of view, I kind of would.
There's definitely some intense eye rolling
From
going on in the second one.
The thing is, I'm actually more upset with once I actually thought about it and actually wrote a paper on it, I'm actually more upset with the second Hobbit film from a movie point of view than I am from a lore point of view, just because nothing really happens plot-wise. It just kind of is all pointless, and there's no real stakes involved, and they overshow the villain and stuff like that.
And
It's just...
Tauriel and Killy and
See,
Well,
I don't
yeah.
have as much of a problem with that because
I don't have a problem with that. Like lore wise, it's dumb, but not like just plot wise, it's dumb also. It's just
yeah. Well, the thing
Okay,
is,
I
from some of the dialogue, I definitely have a problem with. From their actual concept of it, there is an elf captain that is unnamed and ungendered. So, Tauriel
I don't have
is
a problem
technically
with Tauriel
in the
existing.
books.
I have a problem with them
Right.
deciding let's make them romantic.
Right, but that seemed to be the main argument against her, was that she's not in the books. But she is in the books. It's just that they made it a different take
don't-
They
than a lot
don't
of people
directly
thought.
reference Legolas either, but for having him not be there would have been a
Having
It
him
would've
not
been
be there
I-
would have been more
Yeah.
lore breaking than having him.
right. Hey, he is the son of the king after
Exactly.
all.
It's just he wasn't
I
invented in that time.
Right.
There were two, well, not major, but like kind of notable problems I had with the movie. One is the dialogue regarding the whole Toriel Keeley thing, and where they had some very cringeworthy
She's from
lines.
Sauce. Or
Not even
whatever.
that. The one where he's something about hiding something in his.
Yeah, that one
Pencils.
was way too
That was
far
insane.
across the line.
That was just bad. The other thing was where they're kind of messing around in Erebor with messing with these bellows or something, and they make this giant gold dwarf statue thingy. The actual
Oh.
golden thing with him being like entranced by it was actually kind of cool,
Yeah, and
but
my
it had no purpose in the whole scene existing.
my biggest
Except for him
argument
to just be like, lol, no.
My biggest argument against the second Hobbit film is that the book is much more epic than the film is. And that is totally opposite from what we've got from Jackson previously. Normally he's adding in more things to make things more epic, but the spider scene only had like 4 or 5 spiders, whereas in the books there are hundreds of spiders, and Bilbo takes off his ring and yells at them all to follow him as he goes down into the deep part of the spider den, leading the spiders away from some of the wounded dwarves so that they can actually get out safely. And the fact that the representation of that was totally off, and then nobody even got injured during the fight during Smog, just made it seem very anticlimactic as a film compared to the
Okay,
book.
one thing that absolutely has to at least kind of sway it towards being good is watching Legolas get beaten up by an orc.
Oh yeah, that was great.
And then seeing
Yeah,
the look
I
on
have a
his
problem with that.
face after he gets up and has like a bloody nose, it's so satisfying.
Nobody makes
One
me bleed my
good
blood.
one good scene does not make make a
Well,
good movie.
If you say it's just one good scene, it's obviously subjective, but yeah, personally that was just hugely enjoyable for me to watch.
My enjoyment was watching Sprydra during the barrel scene. Because she was trying so hard not to just burst out in laughter. And she couldn't hold it in, and her face was hilarious. And so that made it worth the price of admission alone, was just watching Sprydra watch the bomber barrel scene.
Well, all right.
Double kill.
Yeah, there's funny parodies out there.
Yes. Now, personally, though, I think that an even better movie was the flight safety movie for
Ooh.
Air New Zealand,
Look at that transition.
That was pretty good.
That
where their
was.
flight safety film in relation to The Hobbit, which, of course, they like to come out with these wonderful flight safety films in relation to that. Citrus, have you ever...
Yes.
I presume you've flown with Air New Zealand.
I fly Air New Zealand multiple times a year, because I have to, because it's the only New Zealand airline. But yeah, they even when they don't do these Hobbit, Lord of the Rings ones, they have really high quality safety videos for some reason. It's just their thing. They have like celebrities and stuff. Like when I went back to the States in September, they had Bear Grylls flight safety videos because why not? But this one is obviously very good because not only is it Hobbit themed, they have people from the movies. Peter Jackson is actually in this flight safety video. Multiple actors from the films are in it, and it's good. And I
Right.
recommend it, and it will make you actually pay attention to the flight safety video.
Yeah, this is actually, they did these flight safety videos for each of the Hobbit films so far. The second one hardly anybody knows about because it wasn't actually very good. But they
Yeah, it
didn't
was
spend
pretty
much money on it
bad.
either. So I don't think they wanted it to be good. They just kind of made it for it to be there. The first one was absolutely amazing, and this one for the third film is even
They
better than
also-
that, I think.
They also had ones for The Lord of the Rings
Yep.
when that was coming out.
Yep, and so it's just a lot of fun to watch this. I I recommend people to look through this, especially if you're interested in the Hobbit films, because
Or,
it's just
get on a flight. Come visit me in New Zealand and watch it in the plane.
yeah.
All right. And we have Yorgro has brought us his latest episode of I Was Once a Hobbit. This case part 2, where we have our search for the precious.
Oh my gosh, finally!
What is going on?
Oh god.
So the latest lore article by Yorgro Marybelly. And he finishes off with, and just a quick FYI for Pine Leaf, I've changed my post name to just Yorgro so I don't confuse him anymore. All right. So this is, of course, about the search for the ring and, of course, finding the fellowship. So I presume that that part 3 is probably going to conclude this series.
Most likely.
Most likely. Right, so let's go into the Shadow of Mordor Lore? There's lore in Shadow of Mordor?
Yes,
What?
believe it or not, this is a series done by Bradford, who goes by LOTR Lore on Twitter and all his socials and things. And besides the Tolkien professor, he's the biggest lore person that I know. And so he's not justifying the lore in Shadow of Mordor, but what he's doing is taking as much of an unbiased look at it as he can and trying to point out what is in Tolkien, how it's different in Shadow of Mordor, or how Shadow of Mordor got close to it but not quite, or how Shadow of Mordor actually got an idea or concept from Tolkien into the game. And I absolutely love this series, and actually asked him to put it on LOTRO Players because it's just a fantastic series by someone who really knows Tolkien lore and really cares about Tolkien lore. And so, if you don't like the lore of Shadow of Mordor, you'll enjoy this series. If you enjoy Shadow of Mordor and want to find out more about what the lore is like in Tolkien, I think you'll also enjoy this series. Because he tries to take a fairly unbiased look and just tries to educate his viewers, essentially. So I definitely recommend people who are interested in that to check this out.
All right, very well. Then let's head on to donations. This week we did not receive any donations because we were trying to send people over to the Extra Life. But we would love your support for the future. To help support LOTRO Players, simply go to the donations page where you can help support the podcast on LOTRO Players and also help support the site. We have $5 and $10 mentions where you can donate and get a mention on one or all of our active podcasts for an episode depending on the amount. For $5, you get a mention on the podcast of your choice. For $10 or more, you get a mention on all of our active podcasts. And we also have some feedback. So we'll begin with an iTunes review. Sithrith, could you please read this?
Sure. So Darklighter 1976 left a 5-star review for us on iTunes. And they wrote, "Best LOTRO podcast out there. More like hanging out with good friends than listening to a podcast. This show has increasingly become my go-to source for all LOTRO news, analysis, and enjoyable banter amongst the truly excellent assortment of hosts." Very well indeed, as Pineleaf himself would say.
Very well. Let's go on to featured comments. And Goblin's Bane left a comment on the Bjorning price and systems delay article. So Andy, could you please read that?
I am really sad that Turbine has now so few people that they can't add even one new full, i.e. for Fellowships 2, epic battle after 1 year from introduction of epic battles, and that they had to resign from many things planned for that update. LOTRO is a very good game, with magnificent lore, and not destroyed by devs too much. At least they treat Tolkien much better than Peter Jackson does. Great landscape, nice HD graphics if your computer is strong. But it seems to me that Warner Brothers fails in marketing that game. Now, when there are Hobbit movies released, we should be flooded by people playing that game. Devs should be flooded with money. But most people liking Hobbit film movies have no idea about the game, because Warner Brothers does not care about it. I have seen in my country TV commercials of many games, among them MMOs like World of Warcraft and World of Tanks. But I have never seen a commercial for LOTRO, even in the internet. I found the game a few years ago only because I was looking at lists of best MMORPG, looking for something new to play, and deciding to try because I like Tolkien's world. Having such marketing handicap like those movies and failing to attract people, that's fail of the decade in the gaming industry if you ask me. I would love to play that game for many more years, with breaks, of course. But I am afraid it will die soon. 'Cause if they can't attract people now, so what will be when interest with the Hobbit movies will end? So
That
basically, what he's
actually,
saying is Hobbit films are happening right now, and so that should be driving a lot more people to Lotro, but he feels that it's not, and when the Hobbit films end, that could become an issue. What do you guys think?
it reminds me of way back when the first Hobbit movie was coming out, and obviously we were talking about whether Turbine was going to like take advantage of it. They didn't really seem to, from what I remember. Nothing really happened of it. But I remember someone saying that when they were in the cinema, like waiting for the movie to come on, one of the ads that played before it was an ad for Guild Wars 2,
Mm-hmm.
which
Womp
seems
womp.
like a missed opportunity. Because if you ever want an ad to play before the Hobbit movie, it's a Tolkien-themed game.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that that is the biggest weakness since the Warner Brothers acquisition is just pure lack of advertising. Right before an expansion, I mean right before like 2 weeks before, they'll have ads through Google Analytics and stuff like that. But especially with not having an expansion this year, there just has not been advertising for Lotro that I've seen hardly ever. It's every once in a while I'll see one on Lotro Players, but that's the only place that I'll see
I
a
don't even
Lotro ad.
see them. I don't even see them on Google Ads anymore. And like obviously, I'm looking at Lotro sites. Like I'm looking up Lotro stuff all the time, but for some reason, it just doesn't show up for me anymore. I don't see Lotro ads ever.
No,
Mhm.
I don't see any at all now. Back in like maybe a year or so ago, I would see at least a few every so often. But now, they're pretty much dried up.
Yep,
They're
and
just not. They're not putting their game out there anymore. And I think
Mhm.
that is hurting it.
And especially with the new Beorning class, I don't remember what game it was, but there's a new class that was coming out for an MMO, just this last week that I saw, and that made me start to, before I even got this email, made me start to think about uh, why Lotro wasn't advertising the Beorning. It seems like the Beorning is Hobbit themed. It should be advertised a ton. They should be, screaming at people, "Come, play this game." It's awesome. It's been out for a while, but I think that it's
Yeah.
just not in Warner Brothers' interest to promote, and that's really sad.
And when you consider that Bjorn is a character in The Hobbit, that's where the
Mhm.
idea comes from.
Yep.
Even though, of course,
And
they say technically it comes from a reference to Bjornings in the Lord of the Rings. Let's face it, the characterization of Bjorn comes from The
Well,
Hobbit.
they actually said recently that they have rights to The Hobbit, so
Oh, okay.
yeah.
well, and it's also weird because they released that instance cluster around the time the first Hobbit movie came out. That was obviously based on
Right.
the Hobbit movies coming out,
Yeah.
but they never really advertised that or anything. They never even really admitted it. They were just like, "Oh no, we're
Yeah,
totally
even
working on these."
even like
I mean,
internally to their player base, they didn't really advertise that it was Hobbit related.
Yeah, just who happens to be in Dale and fighting spiders in Mirkwood. Complete coincidence.
What a coincidence! We didn't know a movie was coming out.
There's a movie? What? And
It's
yet
a movie.
you see, ads for like the Lego sets and stuff like that that are being co-funded by Warner Brothers are all over the place. There's they really advertise Shadow of Mordor. Obviously that's a new game, so it's a little bit different, but you would think that they would be really promoting this. The one time that I can think that they actually promoted Lotro with the Hobbit films was when they had that bundle for getting your tickets, and I think it was the Helm's Deep expansion.
Yeah.
That's the only case where there's been even some kind of promotion, and that was really just for their current Lotro audience to go see the film. It wasn't the other way around.
Right.
It really
So
has
Well,
been
even-
a failure in marketing.
it
Yeah.
seems
Just
like a
in general.
complete failure in marketing. And what's really weird is Lotro has a marketing team.
They do?
there are
Really
people at Turbine that are their job title is in the marketing type of stuff. And so it's really frustrating that it seems that they're not promoting LOTRO anymore. Obviously, there was the push for Infinite Crisis and all that stuff, and I think that maybe that's why we haven't seen ads for LOTRO in the last year, because they've been spending all their advertising on that new game that they had coming out from this studio.
Here's another thing that I've noticed that they don't do. I mean, obviously they haven't had an expansion, but they didn't do this for Helm's Deep either. They used to for every expansion. It's not really marketing. I guess it's kind of like low-level marketing, but it's kind of like marketing to the existing players. But they used to, for every expansion, have these really beautiful wallpapers that they would release of
Yeah.
not necessarily
Quarterly
concept art, but
ones,
like
if I remember right.
yeah, they'd have quarterly ones, and they had ones that come out for the expansions. Like I remember the Riders of Rohan ones were really, really good. Like they had ones of Gandalf on his horse. They had like this really cool looking Rohirrim woman on a horse, all reared up with like a spear, and it was really cool. And they didn't do those for Helm's Deep, and they don't even do the quarterly ones anymore, I don't think. So they don't even make these little wallpapers that aren't necessarily advertisements, but they get players like interested in the game. Like it's like, oh look, I can show off my love for the game on my desktop, maybe at work or whatever, and people can, whatever.
My guess is that the person who did that is not at Turbine anymore.
Mm.
And it seems like whenever people who were at Turbine are no longer at Turbine, instead of having somebody else take up that mantle, it's just that that thing is removed from the game, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if some of these things that we've like appreciated, like this, the wallpaper thing, are maybe not something they're actually obliged to do, but something they just did because they wanted to do it, and that's why they aren't picking it up.
But I mean, still, if you're at Turbine, why would you not be contacting, and maybe they are, I don't know, but why would you not be contacting the Hobbit film promoters and telling them, hey, you can promote our game, we have this Hobbit themed thing, it'll make, our parent company Warner Brothers a ton of money, it'll be great for both of us to include this in that. Why not pitch that? I would be surprised if they would just totally refuse that. Even at the end of one of the Hobbit film videos, and that's another thing, by the way, is that the Hobbit film has not had very much promotion at all either. The third Hobbit film. It's been just about silent
Surprising.
compared to previous times. It's almost like they think, well, we'll make money either way, we don't need to promote it at all. I don't know.
Well,
My
the
only
movie
thinking
industry is
is-
notoriously one that centers on ads, I thought.
Yeah, but at around this time we should have at least one trailer out. Plus, all those dev diaries should be out that they'd been having for the previous things. Corey Olson and some of the other people on his Riddles in the Dark podcast were talking about how possibly that's because in the previous videos they had been showing those areas, and how they'd said, well, this is in film 3 and we're not really going to show you this, but here's like a little sneak peek. And then now they're just not showing it, or maybe they're trying to rush out trying to rush to get the film done, and so they can't afford to do those videos. But it just seems like overall advertising is way down at Warner Brothers. Aside from Shadow of Mordor, obviously.
All right. Well, let's go to the next letter, which is from Sue Helm, who left a comment on the Update 15 releasing too soon article. And Brax, could you please read this?
Yeah, I'm going to try and emphasize his words. We had a negative week this week, didn't we? Anyway.
Unfortunately.
Yet again, Turbine has a great ideas, but WB, that's just an abbreviation, pushing them into a botched job, which makes no one happy at all. Mounted combat, epic battle, and Bjornings could all be huge selling points for LOTRO, but shining a light on something that is not working properly can only lead to an adverse reaction. I hope Turbine can fix everything quickly so the damage done is not too severe. A Band-Aid is needed to fix LOTRO at the moment, in my opinion. Sending in a rabid bear to apply it may not be the smartest idea. My fingers are crossed that it all works on the day.
Well, yeah, that's the question, is whether or not on the state of. Now, I think that originally, and when the post was first made, we were thinking that the Bjorning wasn't working well on the mounted combat, and so there was that little thing that may have given the impression that the Bjorning was broken. But I don't think we've seen any evidence broken. It's just that we haven't been able to test it at the high levels yet is the main concern there.
Yeah, originally we thought that it might have been broken. Right now, the main thing that I've noticed on Bionic Mounted Combat is that you go through power really quickly, even investing in it, compared to other classes at with the same number of points and everything invested. So I think, just a little bit of testing could have, kept that from happening. And it's really kind of funny because the fact that the bear form of Bjorning doesn't even run on power. The fact that their war steed has issues of power is really funny. But I would also like to point out that when Brax emphasized those words, they were capitalized. It wasn't that he was just emphasizing words.
All right. Now for Barnabas left a comment on the rejected LOTRO movies posters article, and Jarak, could you please read this one?
Sure. Middle Earth's laziest elf stars in the Big Elronowski. It's a mad, mad world, starring Rook. The good, the bad, the man, starring Gimli, Legolas, and Aragorn. Saving Sarah Oakheart. It's a really slow movie. And The Mirror, starring Gladriel.
All right, thank you. Hey, it's a mad, 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 mad world starring Rook. Okay, I guess that's appropriate. And Bragg left a comment on the Skirmish from Middle Earth article. Pineleaf, please don't take this the wrong way, but I believe that there is a small but realistic chance that you are certifiably insane. Congratulations. That was from Bragg. And that was from Bragg. And Zinger left a review of the LOTRO Players RPG. And dang, what did he give that?
Yes, well, Zinger did say, I give it an 11-1 out of 10. A hard-hitting, interactive biopic on the lives and tribulations that podcasters face while attempting to discover themselves in this chaotic landscape we call our own. Plus, there's pie.
All right. And Zinger also left a comment on the Skirmish from Middle Earth article. He was busy writing, and he says, I'm not totally sure it was responsible to skirmish enough times to earn the title on 13 characters, but well done. Congrats. So now we go on to emails. So we'll go into emails. We have a email from Morty and Sithrid. Could you please read Morty's email?
Sure. Morty says, I made a post on LOTRO forums about this and was curious what you guys thought about it. The basic point of the forum post is that I would love to see the level cap for quest raised from +5 to +10 because right now there is very little challenge in doing quests that are only 5 levels above you. You will understand more by reading my post and also reading the replies, which I think are great. And he links to the forum post, which I can link in chat right now. Hold on, loading. Okay, and I will link it in chat now for you to read it. And of course, it'll be in the show post thing later if you're not listening live. And anyways, he says, I'm very lucky to have a group that meets once a week, and we are finding that we just tear through quests and content that is only +5 levels above us. And it would be nice if Turbine could change this. I don't see any drawbacks, but maybe I'm missing something. I am not a proponent of more XP and think that XP should cap at +5. I hope that all makes sense. Thanks for any input you guys might have. I am sure you guys will have some input that makes sense. You guys know your LOTRO. From Morty.
Well, I think what it sounds like to me is that they're having groups going through doing what I probably solo content on there. So I guess that's why they're streaming through content that's plus 5 above them. Because trying to solo content that's 5 levels above you is, to me, a very major challenge. And
Mm-hmm.
the only time I ever do that is when I'm going for the legendary item thing, where I tend to do that at level 45.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do the mobs turn purple on you? I forget.
6
5.
plus 6.
Oh, yes. After 5.
Okay, so how could they even do plus 10 even in a group? There'd be so many misses, it'd be pretty rough.
Well, yes,
Deflections,
there
I
is going to
guess.
be that.
If some of the members are high enough level that they're red rather than purple, then maybe.
Then, in which case, you start to get into the area of power leveling.
Yeah, and I think that's a
And
problem.
I think this is why some people, though, complain that their content runs out early, is because they're constantly running quests 5 to 10, 5 levels above them, and they're wondering when they get to 5 off the cap why they have no more quests left.
Right. It's a tricky question. There's not really any. It's hard to come up with any kind of solution because
Right.
no matter what way you go, like soloers are gonna have it too hard, group people are gonna have it too easy. There's not really a good way to go about it.
I mean,
Unless
I think
you
he's
split them off entirely.
proposing that they increase the level that you can quest at, but I mean, you would still get the XP from the quest, just not from the mobs that you kill. I think is what he means.
Right.
But even then, yeah, it still kind of opens the possibility for power leveling. Although
Mhm.
somehow I don't think it would be more efficient than, say, just getting someone in a plus 5 skirmish and doing it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's just the fact of the matter is landscape is not really designed for large groups. It just isn't. That's why they have the other group content options.
And that's why we
Right.
haven't really had anyway, except like dedicated group areas since Angmar.
Yep.
All right, let's go to Barnabas, who also sent us an email. And Drac, could you please read that?
Sure. Hello, LOTRO players. During multiple episodes of your podcast, you have mentioned the poor state of the moors and that they need to be, quote, fixed, unquote. However, I don't think I have heard a discussion on what you believe the problems to be. I am very interested in your opinion on the matter. Since January, I have been in the moors about 90% of my playing time. 4 months ago, I moved my creeping to Landy because my home server PvMP population completely stopped. The biggest issue I have noticed post-Update 13 is the population imbalance. This has been magnified by the recent beta of the Bjorns. There has been anywhere from a 2-to-1 to a 4-to-1 creep to freep ratio, which makes for a very boring experience. And when there are no freeps, the OOC chat gets really nasty. So I have thought of an idea that I don't think would take a lot of development time. Number 1, allow the spar mechanic to work on a group/raid level. In this way, if the creep population is high, they could break into 2 sparring teams. This could be done on landscape, and if you didn't want to participate, you need not. This would give the added bonus of fracturing the creeps, so the freeps could actually make some headway. Plus, you could have 4 different groups of factions in the moors: Creep Team A, Creep Team B, non-participating creeps, and freeps. I would add some new dynamics. You could give the sparring team a way to earn infamy nerfed per kill or an infamy quest reward to the surviving team. Number 2, second idea was similar to the first, but make it a creep instance. You could use the delving map and have Team Sauron versus Team Saruman. This could get some tribe rivalry going on, or you could also have team captains and pick from participating creeps to fill your teams. Keep up the excellent work, Barnabas.
All right, and Barnabas also sent in an origin story.
Are we going to, you know?
Answer what he
Say-
asked.
Oh,
Yeah,
you wanted us to answer it.
I assumed we would. I mean, I know we don't really PvP, at least not anymore, but
The main issue with what it was when we had is just there weren't people on during the time we were playing like there used to be. Was my main issue, and also the balance had just changed there, where it was when Freep classes were really overpowered. Since then, they've done a lot of balancing and things like that, and it seems to actually be in a lot better spot. But I just am kind of burnt out on it because of how unbalanced it was at the time that we tried it out.
And he does add in the chat that there's been fantastic action the last 2 weeks.
I think problem with talking about population where he mentions a 2 to 4 creep to feet ratio is it's not the same for every server. I know there are some servers I've casually glancing at the forums. There's some servers that have a freak majority, and if you do something that just allows creeps to kind of split or diverge or anything like that weakens their power, you end up risking making a freak dominated server even more freak dominated. This is a kind of identical problem you have with where you have freeps and creeps balanced in terms of power, but because there are more freeps or creeps on that server, they end up being more powerful in general. You can't really, it's really difficult to balance by population, which is why I don't really think it's ever a good idea to do that.
And that's part of the reason why they actually added in the thing that basically boosts you if you're way over, outnumbered. I don't think that they have enough time or really need, because of the point in the game that we're in, to actually make that be balanced to what it actually should be. But in other MMOs with PvP, that's actually a way that they address imbalance. The other way is adding in a third faction, because then the two underdog factions will usually combine together against the powerful one, and it'll just continue on that way. But when you just have two sides, and in Tolkien's world, it'd be hard to add in a third one, I think, and get it approved. But when you just have two sides, it's hard to balance, I think.
Yeah,
especially on multiple servers.
Yeah, the outnumbered buff you mentioned is a really good opportunity for them to work with, because at the moment it doesn't really give you that much benefit. And I think that would probably be the best way for them to do it, because it wouldn't impact servers lopsidedly. So if you say nerfed creeps because they have more population in general, some servers are going to suffer. So doing that would probably be better. It would also be less resource intensive, and considering the resources they have right now, PvP isn't going to get much of anything. They are most definitely not going to get a third faction, and even though they said maybe about PvP in Osgiliath, I think in light of the recent layoffs and things that seem to be hinting towards resource allocation issues, it's pretty much not going to happen, I don't think. So yeah, I wouldn't expect much of anything for the Moors. Maybe a couple of changes in terms of creep classes, but aside from that, I'm not expecting anything.
All right. Any other comments on the letter?
I think that
I
think that pretty much covers it. I think that for basically, it might be balanced at times depending on what server you're able to be on. But I think there's just always going to be some server somewhere that's not balanced, just because LOTRO has 29 of them and they're each different.
And Turbine isn't going to do anything to help because they just don't have the resources to, and PvP is way down the list of priorities.
Yeah.
Like it or not.
I still think that if they put in a lot more things in the store for PvP, that people would buy them, even just skins, and that could really help fund the system, but it's just not on the priority.
Right. And Barnabas also sent us, well, you could think of it as an origin story, only now it's a thing. Barkamula, Termos, and Fokin, Hemophagus, Boise, and Pine Venom. But do you recall the most infamous defiler of all? And dang, the PvPer didn't like to heal his bros, and if you grouped with him, he would just want killing blows. All of the other creeps used to yell and shout his name. They never let poor Andang play any fight club games. Then one stormy Ettenmore Eve Utmund came to say, Andang with your stave gripped tight, won't you lead my crade tonight? Then all the monsters loved him, and they made him decree, Andang the PVMPer, you gain lots of infamy.
Yay! Thank you, finally. Did not expect you to sing that. And I'm glad you didn't ask me to read that. Because that was awesome.
That was crazy.
That was good. This has been a good show.
You can
It
email
is.
us at
He did his research too on those creep names.
Yeah,
'cause those are
he
the
included
ones we
things
use.
like Ugmog and other things. I mean, and for those of you who
Pema
don't know,
to
that's
Vegas. I think that's Drax one.
well for those yeah,
Pema to
Yeah, it
Phase
was.
thing.
and for those of you that don't know, Ugmog is Ivan from Through the Palantir, and he was on Fellowship of the Creeps with us. So yeah, he clearly did his homework here.
All right. And you could contact us by emailing us at podcast@lotroplayers.com. And you could also follow us on Twitter. The Players Alliance at Players Ally, Lotro Players at Lotro Players, Andang at PVMP_Andang, Braxwolf at Braxwolf, Sithrith at Sithrith, Draculetta at Draculetta_72, Ethros at Ethros, Lily Kate at Lily Kate Buggins, Mystery at Mystery XOX, and Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles. You could listen to our Players Alliance live shows on Mondays at 8:30 p.m. United States Eastern Time, that's server time, DDO Players News, and Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. server time, Lotro Players News. And you can join us live on the shows at lotroplayers.com/live. And you can also join us on Langeville for Lotro Players Adventures each Saturday at 5 p.m. server time. Thank you, everyone, for listening. That is all for tonight. And this is Pineleaf Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.